and it's a pleasure to welcome you at a lecture by Adam Kola, Global Knowledge Transfer: Is Complexity Science a Remedy for the Weaknesses of Presumptive History? As you know, the mission of the IAS is to advance cutting-edge research that addresses complex scientific and societal challenges. The core of our institute is the development of methodologies to foster interdisciplinary research, and that includes, of course, the humanities. But what is the role of the humanities in making interdisciplinary connections and developing methodologies to study complex problems? We are very glad to welcome Adam Kola, in our midst to explore these issues. Adam is director of the Center of Excellence, IMSErt, Interacting Minds, Societies, Environments at Nicolaus Copernicus University in Toruń, Poland. Adam authored numerous monographs, volumes, and papers. In 2016 till 2019, he was visiting scholar at the University of Chicago. His research focused on the Eastern and Central European intellectual and literary history of the 19th and 20th centuries and global knowledge transfer. In 2018, he published the book Socialist Post-Colonialism, Memory Reconsolidation. And in his talk today, he will present the project that he is working on this academic year at IAS. He will give a lecture of about 35 minutes, and thereafter we will have time for Q&A and discussion till 5 o'clock. Adam, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope that you can see my screen. I will start from the beginning. Yes, you can see. Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, I would like to say thank you to Huub for this kind introduction and your really kind hospitality at the Institute. Because I know that the time is really hard, and it was really a great pleasure during the October and November to see you a few times and get some lunches with you and really nice meetings. And I hope that during the spring season it will be back. And I need to also thank to Peter Slot for accepting me for this fellowship, even with maybe a little bit strange background for the Institute itself. But I'm really happy to be here. I realized today that it was really a long time ago, like probably 2 years ago. So it was just before COVID even, so BC time. I don't know if we're still during the COVID or in post-COVID era, so PC post-COVID is probably still in front of us. I want to also say thank you to Joyce and Edwina, because they are really doing great job in all those administrative things. And finally, I need to say thank you to Polish National Agency for Academic Exchange, NAWA, because they founded those research and my stay here. As Huub mentioned, the title is Global Knowledge Transfer, and with this question, is complexity science a remedy for the weaknesses of presumptive history? And there are 4 parts of this talk. The first 3, there are rather questions about knowledge transfer, complexity science, or in humanities, and the question of presumptive history. And at the very end, it will be a kind of conclusion or summary that will be the knowledge transfer from Eastern and Central Europe, but more generally, it will be about knowledge, about global knowledge transfer. So 3 questions, 3 problems, and maybe some kind of solution at the very end. So the first question is about knowledge transfer and what I mean by that. So I started this research a few years ago when I was working in different basically American archives on scholars from humanities and social sciences, but also from hard science, working in the US. They immigrated basically before and during the Second World War, some of them just after the war. So in the mid of 20th century, and when I was working there, I realized that we are really focusing on the transatlantic knowledge transfer, or the knowledge transfer from Eastern Europe to Western Euro-American world, where there are really many other cases which we can mention, and those two very simple maps created at that time shows that there are more direction of this knowledge transfer in different periods from different Eastern and Central European regions, etc. And that the phenomenon of this geographical knowledge transfer could be really something global. But the point is that this kind of knowledge transfer is missing in the most of the study, because we are focusing on two issues. First of all, on this transatlantic knowledge transfer. The second issue is that we are focusing always, as on this map on the right side, on the bottom side of the slide, on separate case studies, usually focusing on one person, on one theoretical school, etc. So most of the studies are very limited in those respect. What I mean also by knowledge transfer is the fact, I hope that you realize that I'm talking about geographical knowledge transfer, not within the organization as you can find as the definition of knowledge transfer. So this is something that is related usually to migration, to travel, to geographical spreading of knowledge. And when you are looking on this, you will find definitely two kind of possible explanation of this phenomenon. Usually you can find one variant, which is focused on theories, ideas, or concepts. So this is the left column here, which refers, of course, to philosophy of science, or history of ideas, or intellectual history, or history of the humanities. So focusing on concepts, on ideas, on theories, which are crucial for such endeavors. And when you transfer this, and this is here on the bottom of this left column, to the problem of knowledge transfer, there are some ideas concerning the knowledge transfer in those respects. There are few names that you of course know. That is from the beginning of 80s traveling theory by Edward Said, then Mika Ball's traveling concepts from the beginning of 21st century, then Kukanen's conceptual change from 2008, and Betty and Van den Berg from Amsterdam, the concept drift within modeling the history of ideas from 2014. Okay, but all of them focusing on theories. So this is this kind of theory-centric attitudes in philosophy, history, or sociology of science, of humanities, of knowledge as such. But what I would like to do here is to move to the right column. So not to throw away theories, ideas, and concepts, but to add this, what is the crucial for something which we can call knowledge practice, which is studied by social studies of science, STS, ANT, etc. So all those schools or approaches that are focusing on real academic practices. And this is, so the right bottom part of this graph is something that I really would like to focus on. So on practice of doing knowledge. In that sense, I used to work on materiality and the practice of knowledge, also of knowledge transfer. There are two cases presented here, but there were more of them. On the left side, you have two examples from interwar period, from the groups of mathematicians who are working in Scottish Cafe, and they established very important book, which is called the Scottish book, which is on the bottom side, with different problems which should be solved. On the right side, you have the story or some photos and elements from the history of Rudolf Weigel from the Second World War, and concerning the producing of vaccination and lice feeding, etc. So those were cases that I was dealing with before. And now the point is how to use this in working on knowledge transfer, how this materiality can be transferred and described in the categories of knowledge of knowledge transfer. And this goose here on the photo you can see is an excellent example of this problem. The problem number 153, that was one of the problems from the Scottish book, from the Scottish Cafe in Lviv. And it was solved in 1972 by Swedish mathematician Per Enflo. And the prize for solving this problem was goose. And he really came to Warsaw in 1972 to get this prize from one of the members of this interwar period, Stanisław Mazur. So in what kind of categories, how we can describe such a situation like those with the Scottish book itself, or with this goose as an example of really material or definitely non-human but living animal being, which is a part of this knowledge transfer. Even if it is at the very end of this process, it is just a prize for solving some problem. And this is one thing, the one possibility, okay, to focus on. So this switch, this move from, as I said, from theories, ideas, and concept to the practice. The second point is I'm presenting this in a model of core and periphery model, which is widely used in economics, in social sciences, in global history right now. And there are many different versions of this. Probably the most important and well-known is Immanuel Wallerstein model of world system theory. But not going into details, the point is that in such a categories, knowledge transfer is always described as a move from peripheries to the core, as you can see here, where the capital accumulation in the centers and exploitation of the peripheries is exactly the same within the frame of economics as in the knowledge production. So we can use the same description to describe what's going on in global knowledge production system. We can transfer this as well to other spheres and other other areas of research. For example, we can use very similar description to the situation of relation between colonial metropolis and peripheries, where metropolis are doing something like brain drain, taking all talented people to the centers and using them for accumulation of knowledge in this respect, not of accumulation of capital. So post-colonial theories also using very similar problem. So when you are looking on those two moves, it looks like the situation to describe knowledge transfer is pretty good. We have good tools, we have good examples, and we can go further in doing this. But I have some doubts about that. So I will explain them in a minute. But now I would like to skip to the second question. So this is the question of the complexity science and humanities. And here I would like to say, first of all, that the word complexity is, of course, a part of dictionary or a part of humanities as such, and it is used and appears in humanities. Usually it is used as a kind of metaphor or in a descriptive way. And usually it has nothing common with complexity science as such. And we have partly this discussion on the seminar this Friday, but I would like to come back to this. So the use of complexity approaches in the humanities faces a number of barriers. It can be reduced to two main problems or levels, although this do not, explain all possible situations. First, there is this individual level, that is the lack of competences. And the second is more systematic level, the lack of proper training and academic or organizational culture in humanities. The first, so the lack of competences, consists in lack of training in specific competencies necessary to research in the humanities. And at the same time, in lack of adequate training in new technologies, quantitative methods, as I said, as we discussed this recently at Friday's seminar, some statistical tools, coding, etc. And with all these problems, I have to face also myself, acting somewhat as a kind of self-made man. The second point is, of course, a consequence of the first, but one that is transmitted across generations and institutions. There's no adequate institutional framework for this kind of research within the humanities, and I know this also from my own institution. For example, when we were creating a laboratory for humanists, and there were really a huge problem concerning space, money, and just the kind of willingness of university decision makers to create such a laboratory, and to understand that we can need this if within the humanities and humanities research. But you can find this also, for example, in grant review panels, degree granting bodies, etc. Probably it's changing faster in core academies, slower in peripheral ones, again widening this gap between them. But it should be also remembered that on the other side, on the side of complexity science, cooperation with humanists gives rise to various types of bias and problems, and sometimes an initial lack of understanding of particular discipline or disciplinary specificity. One of this problem is equating the humanities with social sciences, which in many ways is of course not valid. Some of the disciplines in social sciences, especially psychology, also sociology, have adapted perfectly to the demands of quantitative and mixed methods, work through experimental and empirical approaches, rely on large data sets, and make fruitful use of statistical tools. But humanities, for the most part, do not do this. And instead, the humanities are trying to deal with complexity science, use a different strategy, moving to their ways of working, the questions they pose towards the social sciences. An excellent example of this is archaeology, which originally as a part of humanities makes productive use of complexity science. And this book on the slide, Agent-Based Modeling for Archaeology, Simulating the Complexity of Societies, edited by Iza Romanowska, Colin Wren, and Stephanie Crabtree, recently published by Santa Fe Institute Press, is excellent example of this strategy. So moving from the soft humanities towards the more social science way of thinking and doing things. One of the problem in the encounter between the humanities and complexity science is a kind of bias and trouble in understanding. And one might say that complexity science simplifies where the humanists see multiplicity. And on the other side, the humanists refuse to accept reduction where the model, which is important here, demands this. Okay. So the question of presumptive history, I will try to present this briefly. The problem I would like to pose here concerns presumptive history, but more broadly the absence of the so-called second world. I use this term between the first and the third world, the second world here in this term descriptively, not normatively. So there is a lack of this part of the world in global knowledge history for many reasons. I just would like to mention two of them. One is the problem with archives and its availability, or rather non-availability. There are many reasons of this, but particularly the most important is the fact that Central and Eastern European archives were destroyed during the wars, different wars. And that's why one day when we were working with Danuta Ulicka, we adopted the term presumptive history in the place of that which cannot be written like another kind of history based on available archival documents. We simply just don't have those documents because they were destroyed. The other reasons are because some of those archives were moved with people somewhere abroad, and they were not available to us, etc. So this is the one reason. The other is the other one is here, and we can call this a kind of human factor. So the personal wartime losses for science and humanities in Eastern and Central Europe were enormous, and the post-war communist era history did not make it easier. And it prolonging the state of disunity between core and semi-peripheral scholars. And when you look on this list, which is of course not the full list, but of the very important WUF Warsaw Mathematical and Logical School from the interwar period, and you look on the list of those names, you will see that most of them just died or were killed during the war. And some of them, like the blue names, were moved outside, so emigrated. Only those three names, Kazimierz Kujatowski, Stanisław Mazur, and Hugo Steinhaus, were those who survived the war and just stay in Poland at that time. So there are some historical reasons, but there are also some present reasons. And years ago, together with Agata Domachowska, I think she's here, and with Łukasz Gęziak, we're trying to analyze journals and conferences taking into account the presence of Eastern and Central European topics within this. And we analyzed 10 years of social studies of science. This is on the left column journal, and the Conference of European Association of Science and Technology, also for 10 years. And on the right side, you have humanities, and we choose at that time modern intellectual history from Cambridge University Press, and the conference here from Amsterdam, the history of humanities. And we take a look closer for the amount of topics from Eastern and Central Europe, and you can see the exact numbers. So they're really very, very low. Yes, they're about 1–2%, sometimes a little bit higher. It was the case, for example, in the case of East Conference, which was organized at my home university in 2014. There were more than 5% of topics related to this area. There's of course growing interest in those topics, but still this is really something that is lacking in this global knowledge, the history of knowledge, sociology of knowledge, philosophy of knowledge, of science, of humanities and knowledge picture, okay? There's missing one part, even to, to greater degree than, for example, some post-colonial areas. And as a kind of conclusion, I would like to show you what we are trying to do. So myself and people that I'm working with, some of them were already mentioned here. So we are trying to, of course, find the solution of that. And there are 3 steps for this. First refers to broader archival research, especially in those archives that were not available before because they are somewhere abroad. The second step is the question of the scale, how to jump from the individual case study scale to more global picture, and to take into account more cases and to try to present the whole process of global knowledge transfer. And step 3, which is here only like very small one, I mean, it's just remark that what I want to do here at the Institute is looking for some solution. And I think for many reasons that creating a good model could be helpful here. So I will shortly describe those 3 steps, or at least 2. The first are the question of archives, or this missing or lacking archival materials. So the solution is to create a large scale or to do large scale archival research. And the problem there is the processing of the data later on. And this is where better and better automated data processing tools come to rescue. And we are using Transcribus. This is a kind of handwritten text recognition program based on AI, or more precisely machine learning in recognizing handwritten archival documents. It's working pretty well. We are really happy with that. The problem is that while, for example, Western writing styles in different languages and from different eras are highly developed, especially here, Dutch museums and archives are really advanced in doing this and using this program and similar tools. Those from Eastern and Central Europe are still not. So we have to really, starting from the very beginning, we have to teach the program a particular writing model. Each time we need to train this model and then apply this to each particular data set from archives. And we are doing this in Toruń together with my students, but it is really a large amount of work, so we are doing this slowly. This is the first step and the first solution. But at the same time, we are trying to find different way to deal with this problem and how to describe the knowledge transfer process. So how to find data in different places, or how to collect data. And we were trying to do this in different ways, but we finally decided together, now we are working with Brett Batlier, to develop a tool to process this data, collecting from the Wikipedia. It is, of course, very bad source, I can say so. But there are also some advantages of using that. So Brett creates a program in R to automate this process. We are working on a sample of about 1,500 cases of Polish scientists, intellectuals, and inventors, whose entries were included in the English Wikipedia. Now there are some basic results concerning the period and the age of the people, etc. It's not crucial here. And we are now testing the tool's effectiveness on a larger group of scientists, also from Russia and from Czech Republic. And ultimately, we plan to test approximately 19,000 examples in this manner. So this is pretty good sample, I hope so. But still, we are this is work in progress. And the source, the Wikipedia as a source, is of course not free of different problems which can appear there. What is more, the problem there is that we are still using English language Wikipedia because it is the largest one with pretty good entries, with errors on the very slow level. But the best solution would be to use other, Brett is here. I can see him. And of course, we can use also, at least we can try to use other languages, but it is not so simple. For example, there's a problem of languages that contain conjugations, which is not so easy to proceed with. And so anyway, but we are trying to deal also with this problem. So this is our second step. And there are some basic result and also some basic problems. For example, when we have list of countries here on the left side, there are a very interesting case number 3, which is Oman, which is one of the most important country in the knowledge transfer, Polish knowledge transfer history, which is of course not true. Okay, probably there were no one living or moving to Oman. Probably this is a part of like the Roman, Romanian, etc. Some other countries which names are, or the Oman is a part of this name. And there are many, many problems like this. Anyway, we are trying, and we need to go step by step to make this data clear and to avoid all errors. And a kind of conclusion, so where I'm going and why I'm presenting this right now and talking with Huub at the very beginning, that it's supposed to be more questions in this presentation than answers at this stage. So we think that the best solution, except all those steps we're doing, maybe will give us some good advices. We would like to create a kind of model of knowledge transfer. And at least for two reasons. One, to describe and to find where are the crucial points of knowledge transfer, where it is successful, where not, where at which cases we should focus more on and which are not so important, etc. This is one reason. But the other is very pragmatic, and that maybe if we create this model and we can, coming back to this very beginning and the map which was here, very simple one, we can cover this map with many different or other directions of knowledge transfer, places where people are moving, interactions in global knowledge process and production, etc. Places that are beyond something that we already know and that is a part of our common knowledge, like the mentioned at the very beginning, transatlantic knowledge transfer. So if we can create a model, it could help us to find those historical evidences, data, places, people, approaches, traditions, which are right now forgotten. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Adam.